morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. We all carry scars, some visible, others hidden deep within our hearts. These scars are often seen as signs of pain, weakness, or defeat. But what if I told you that these very scars have the power to shine, to become stars that light our path and inspire others? Today, I want to share with you a journey of resilience, courage, and unshakable hope. A journey inspired by a woman who turned a tragedy into triumph. A woman who, despite life's harshest blows, refused to give up. That woman is Muniba Mazari, the Iron Lady of Pakistan. She once said, "Don't die before your death." And through her life, she has shown us that no matter how deep the wound, we can choose to rise, we can choose to heal. And most importantly, we can choose to turn our scars into stars. Absolutely. Here's an expanded version of Keynote 1, Embracing Pain as a Catalyst for Growth. In about 700 words, without ending sentences or headings, pain is something we all experience in different ways. It doesn't knock before entering. It just arrives, even invited and unannounced. Sometimes it comes silently, other times like a storm, shaking the very core of our being. For many of us, the first instinct when we feel pain is to resist it, to run from it, to question why it came to us. But in the life of Muniba Mazari, we see a different narrative. One that teaches us that pain, when embraced, can become a powerful catalyst for growth. At the age of 21, Muniba faced a life-altering car accident that left her paralyzed from the waist down. Her spine was crushed, her arm fractured, and doctors told her she would never walk or be able to live a normal life again. But for most people, this would have been the end of dreams, the end of hope, and the beginning of a long, silent suffering. But for Muniba, it became the turning point. The turning point. She chose not to be defined by the accident. Instead, she allowed her pain to mold her, to push her into a version of herself she never knew existed. This is where the power of embracing pain lies. Pain breaks us open, and in that breaking, it reveals parts of us we never knew were there. It challenges our limits, shatters our comfort zones, and forces us to face truths we might have avoided for years. Muniba didn't just accept the pain, she welcomed it as a teacher. She allowed it to teach her patience, resilience, gratitude, and above all, strength that wasn't just physical, but deeply emotional and spiritual. Growth never happens in comfort. Flowers don't bloom in soft soil alone. They need the storm, the wind, the sun, and even the harshness of the changing seasons. In the same way, human beings grow when tested, when pushed, when forced to dig deep within themselves. Muniba's story reminds us that the most beautiful transformation often begins at the point where everything seems to fall apart. When her body gave up, her spirit awakened. When she could no longer walk, she found a way to fly through her words, her art, her courage. Pain, when seen through the lens of purpose, it stops being an enemy and becomes a messenger. It tells us there's more to us than we know. It reveals potential. It stirs something powerful inside us. Muniba turned a hospital bed into a classroom. She spent 2 years bedridden, but instead of drowning in despair, she used that time to reflect, to rebuild her identity, and to reconnect with her dreams. That period of pain became her cocoon, where her true self emerged. Most of us spend our lives trying to avoid pain. But avoidance doesn't lead to growth. It leads to numbness. Pain isn't meant to destroy us, it's meant to awaken us. When Muniba accepted her reality, instead of waiting for the pain to disappear, she started to create meaning from it. Her words today touch millions, not because she's perfect or healed completely, but because she chose to let pain shape her into a storyteller, a motivator, and a voice for those who feel voiceless. There is no shame in being broken. The Japanese art of kintsugi teaches us that broken pieces can be mended with gold, making the object even more beautiful than before. Muniba is a living example of kintsugi. Her pain became the gold that filled her cracks, and today she shines with a light that can only come from having walked through darkness. Every scar on her body is a story. Every tear she shed watered the roots of her strength. Her courage was born in the fire of her suffering, and she allowed that fire to refine her instead of consume her. What we often forget is that growth isn't always loud. Sometimes it happens in silence. In hospital rooms, in the quiet moments of doubt, in the tears that no one sees. Pain strips us of everything superficial and brings us face to face with who we really are. It forces us to rebuild from within. And that rebuilding, though painful, is the birthplace of authenticity. Muniba didn't become an icon overnight. She became one because she allowed herself to sit with her pain, to learn from it, and then to rise with it. Sure, here's an expanded version of Keynote 2, redefining beauty and strength through adversity in approximately 700 words, without any ending lines or headings, in a world that often defines beauty by perfection and strength by physical power. Adversity disrupts those definitions and forces us to look deeper. When someone like Muniba Mazari enters the room, you immediately notice something different. It's not just her radiant smile or the vibrant colors she paints with. It's her presence. It's the way she carries herself, not despite the wheelchair, but with it. She has redefined what it means to be beautiful and strong, not through appearance or physical ability, but through resilience, authenticity, and inner light. Before her accident, Muniba fit into the traditional mold that society often idolizes: young, able-bodied, and full of dreams. But after the accident, everything changed. Her reflection in the mirror no longer matched society's standards. She had scars, she had limitations. And for a while, she questioned her worth. But slowly, painfully, and with great courage, she began to challenge the very definitions that had once made her feel small. She began to understand that true beauty is not what is seen, but what is felt. It is the ability to stand tall in spirit even when the body cannot. It is the glow that comes from embracing yourself completely, flaws and all. Adversity strips away the surface-level definitions that we cling to. It pushes us beyond appearances and into the realm of character. Muniba's strength is not just in her story, but in how she chose to rewrite her story. She became a model, not because she wanted to prove a point, but because she refused to let a wheelchair limit her dreams. She sat on runways with pride, sending a message to the world that beauty doesn't need legs to walk. It needs a heart that refuses to give up. Society often equates strength with invincibility, but Muniba redefines strength as vulnerability in motion. She shows us that it's okay to cry, to break down, to be human. Strength, she teaches, not pretending to be okay all the time. It is being real enough to say, yes, yes. And in doing so, she gives others permission to do the same. That is the kind of strength that transforms lives. When Muniba paints, she paints with colors that speak of hope, pain, and freedom. Her hands, once fractured, now create worlds on canvas. Her art speaks volumes, not because of the technique, but because of the truth it holds. Each stroke is a reminder that beauty can be born from brokenness. Her face, her voice, her story, they all challenge the shallow definitions we've been fed. They remind us that beauty is not symmetrical features or unscarred skin. It is the courage to be yourself unapologetically. Through adversity, Muniba found her truest form. She didn't just redefine beauty and strength for herself. She redefined it for countless others watching her rise. Little girls in wheelchairs now see a reflection of themselves in her. Women who've been silenced by society's unrealistic standards now find a voice through hers. And she became a symbol not of survival, but of transcendence. Not because she had to, but because she chose to live openly and fearlessly. The journey to redefining beauty and strength isn't easy. It comes with rejection, with stares, with comments that sting. Muniba faced them all, but she responded not bitterness, but with grace. She didn't let the world tell her who she was. Instead, she told the world who she was going to be. And in doing so, she challenged all of us to look within and ask ourselves where we get our definitions from. True beauty is in the scars we carry with pride. True strength is in the stories we dare to share. Muniba's life is a powerful reminder that adversity doesn't disfigure us, it reveals us. It removes the masks, the filters, the facades. It shows us what we're truly made of. And once we see ourselves through that lens, we begin to shine in ways we never imagined. Not because we fit in, but because we stand out exactly as we are. Absolutely. Here's an expanded version of Keynote 3, inspiring others by owning your story in approximately 700 words, with no ending lines or headings. Every person has a story, but not everyone chooses to tell it. Some stories are wrapped in shame, others in silence, and many in fear of judgment. Yet the moment someone chooses to own their story fully, without hiding the pain and the mistakes. It's the scars, they not only set themselves free, but also become a source of light for others. Muniba Mazari is someone who didn't just live through a story of tragedy and survival. She turned that story into a message, a movement, and a mission. After her accident, Muniba could have easily chosen to disappear into a life of quiet resignation. With a broken spine and shattered dreams, it would have been understandable if she had decided to stay silent. But she didn't. She looked at her story, painful and raw as it was, and made a powerful choice to own it. Not just the good parts or the inspiring moments, but the difficult days, the tears, the loneliness, the questions, and the heartbreak. She embraced every chapter and turned it into a narrative that could uplift others. When someone speaks the truth, it resonates deeply. Not because they are perfect, but because they are real. Muniba's voice is powerful, not because it is loud, but because it is authentic. She talks about the nights she cried herself to sleep, the times she felt unworthy, and the moments when giving up seemed easier than holding on. These moments, often hidden behind smiles in most people's lives, are brought to light in her story. And in doing so, she creates space for others to feel seen, heard, and understood. Owning your story means taking back the power that pain tries to steal from you. Mona. It means choosing not to let circumstances write your identity. Muniba didn't let her wheelchair define her. Instead, she defined what it meant to live a full, meaningful life even with physical limitations. Her story became her strength, and her strength became her platform to inspire change, not just within individuals, but within society's perceptions of disability, beauty, and success. Storytelling is one of the most powerful tools for human connection. People may forget facts or statistics, but they remember stories that make them feel. When Muniba shares her journey, she does more than recount events. She transfers hope. She makes people believe that no matter what happens, there is still a reason to keep going. She turns vulnerability into power and silence into a roar that echoes in the hearts of millions. Her story becomes a mirror in which others can see their own struggles reflected and realize they are not alone. What makes her story even more impactful is her refusal to edit out the uncomfortable parts. She doesn't pretend to have it all figured out. She doesn't cover up her scars. Instead, she speaks about them with pride because they represent her survival, her growth, and her truth. In a world obsessed with perfection and highlight reels, Muniba's unfiltered storytelling is a breath of fresh air. It invites others to stop hiding, to stop pretending, and to start embracing their own journeys. Inspiring others doesn't require grand achievements, it requires honesty. Muniba's life shows that when you stand in your truth, no matter how painful it is, you give others permission to do the same. Her speeches don't just uplift, they empower. They remind people that their story, no matter how messy or broken, holds value. And sometimes what we think is the most shameful part of our story becomes the very thing that helps someone else find their way. The beauty of owning your story is that it transforms pain into purpose. Every time Muniba shares her journey, she's planting seeds of strength in someone else's heart. She is teaching people that it's okay to fall as long as you rise. She is showing the world that your voice can be the light in someone else's darkness, but only if you're brave enough to use it. Her story travels across borders, cultures, and languages because truth is universal. People from all walks of life connect with her not because she is different, but because she is honest about the ways she is the same. She feels fear, doubt, heartbreak, and disappointment like everyone else. But she doesn't let those feelings control her story. She chooses to write her narrative with courage, and in doing so, she inspires countless others to pick up their pens and do the same. Let me know if you'd like help with your conclusion or any part of your full speech.